All right, good evening. This is Thursday, March 13th, 2025 at 7:03 PM. This is the Town of Wilmington, Connecticut Board of Finance meeting. The meeting is called to order. We will start with the seating of alternates. Christine's not in, so we'll need an alternate for her. Do we have a motion for Britt to be that alternate?
I move to seat Britt Rotthauser in place of Christina.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, and abstentions, they're unanimous. All right, we'll start with the approval of the minutes from March 6th, 2025.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, no, and one abstention. Well. Present to speak, public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to continue progress, stay on topic, and maintain the quorum. Do we have anybody for present to speak? Nope, then we'll move on to new business. Item number 1 under new business is revenue presentation presented by Donna Litinsik, business manager. Good evening, Donna.
Good evening, board members. You have a 2-page memo in your packet. First page is a summary, the second page is the detail. So we're looking at the 5 usual categories of revenue. And the first category is property taxes. Today I worked with the assessor to try and figure out for you what is the growth in the grand list if there was not a revow. And, we worked at it for a while. We couldn't come up with a number. But what we do know is that there were 7 new houses that were completed that are going to add to the grand list, and 2 under construction. And there was no new commercial construction. So that's all we have to tell you on that's on real estate, on growth in the grand list. So I would say in conclusion, even though we don't have a number, it's very little growth in the grand list without the revow, if you compared apples to apples. So, let's look at the second category of revenue that the town has, and that's the money that we get from the state. That's intergovernmental revenue, and that's in the blue box on the second page. So you can see the different areas where we're getting money from the state. Some of these are statutory grants. There's a little decrease in our education cost sharing grant. There is an overall increase in our state money because we are getting our motor vehicle tax reimbursement payment. And we are getting that because in the previous year, our motor vehicle tax was capped. And so this year we're getting a grant from the state to make up for that difference. So, okay, that's a good thing. About $20,000 more in money from the state. The third category is our investment income. So this year we budgeted $197,000, and it's going to be close, but I think we're going to make it. Next year, I trimmed it back a bit, and the reason that I trimmed it back is because the treasurer is going to be keeping a balance in the checking account, and that balance is going to offset the bank fees. So that money is not going to be in the savings account earning interest. So I thought, okay, maybe with that in mind, we'll earn a little less interest. I don't know how much less, but I have a feeling since we're not fully investing everything we have in savings, we might be getting earning a little less interest income. So that brings us to the fourth category, which is our local money, the interest, fees, and permits. And I bumped that up $7,000 for you. I trued up the building fees and permits. So as you look at the table, the first two columns are actual. And then the third column is this year's budget that's approved. And then I have actual. So you can kind of see, like, as you look over the first line in licensing fees and permits is the building fees. And so you can kind of see, maybe we might get more than 50,000, which is what we have budgeted this year. So I bumped it up a little bit. I just looked at the trends and trued things up. And I came up with a $7,000 increase. The last category is miscellaneous. And one of the things in the miscellaneous category is the telecommunications grant, which is the money that we get on the cell towers in town. And as that equipment depreciates and is worth less, we receive less money. It's sort of like a property tax. So anyway, that leaves fund balance to be applied when all is said and done. I put in $400,000. I don't think you will have as much as 900,000 to apply, but I think you could get 400,000. And that's where you are. In conclusion, there's really not any big new revenue that I think the board can count on.
But go back to the revamp thing again.
Yeah, the reval thing. Okay, so what's the growth in the grand list? That's what we want to know,
Yeah.
right? But we don't know because we have our new grand list number is adjusted for new market prices. Okay, so I sat down with the assessor and I said, let's figure out the growth in the grand list if there was no reval. So now we're comparing just what new properties came on. Right? But we couldn't do it. We just couldn't figure out a way to get that number.
Right, but we have a revamp.
We had a reval.
You know what that is.
We know what that is. Yes, we do. We know what that number is in the grand list.
So that's what we want to talk about.
Oh, sure, you can talk about that number, but that number, yes,
I mean, that's what it's gonna be.
that's what it's gonna be. That's what yes, that is what the taxes are gonna be based on, that number. But how much of that number represents growth in the town and how much represents growth in the market is what I was trying to figure out.
Do you actually have a number that we can,
I do have a grand list number. Yes,
Okay.
that's published.
but it's not anywhere on these documents?
It's not, because I didn't think, what are you gonna compare it to? In my mind, but the 24 grand list total net value is $658 million, 582, 5,802, 707. So one more time, it's 658, 582, 707.
And that was fiscal year, is that 2024?
24 grand list, which is the 26th fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you want to know how that compares to,
Yeah,
okay. Oh, I didn't bring that binder with me. It was 4,485 million, something.
What, how much is that percentage increase, do you know?
448 million,
No, I would have to do the math.
So let's
it's
just
just
say,
658, so
so it went from 448 to
To 658.
Yeah, about that, round numbers.
yeah.
50%.
Yes, that's about right.
I think what, correct me if I'm wrong, Donna, but I think what she's saying, Jeff, is that if you lived in a house today and it was worth this much, and tomorrow they told you it was worth this much more, does it really mean anything to you while you're still living in the house and making the same amount of money? That's essentially what she's saying.
Yeah, as long as my mill rate goes back down.
Yeah, as long as your mill
Yes.
rate goes back down. Yes.
I mean,
I understand. I know that all the towns around us, the reports I was getting were someplace between 35% and 60% increase in their grand list. Except for Ashford, who didn't do a reval this year and they were down 1%. Of their grand list.
What did you say the averages for growth in grand list if they did a revamp?
Someplace between 30 and 60, depending on the
30
town.
and 60, quite a swath.
And we're a little bit higher because we did a 6-year reval instead of a 5-year reval.
Mhm.
We asked
I
for
think
that
our
extension.
average was around 48, something like that.
Right around.
On the total intergovernmental, no, on the investment income.
Yes.
You said the bank fees are going to be coming out of the accounts.
Yes, if we maintain a balance of such and such in our checking account, then our fees will be waived.
Ah, I see. So the money is in the account, but we have to maintain a minimum amount, basically. Okay.
Yes,
I thought we were paying the fees out of the account. I was wondering what,
No.
were there fees there
We're-
before? And okay,
no,
now I
we're trying to
understand.
get away out of paying bank fees.
Yeah, okay.
Which we did successfully this year and
Yes.
really haven't.
Yes.
That was a new,
Yes,
wasn't that new?
it was a
A
new
new
thing that
concept
came
that the
into
treasurer
the-
thought might happen.
Yes,
that
he thought
if
it might
he was-
happen,
yeah.
yes, and then the bank said, well, if you maintain a minimum balance, then we'll waive the fees.
I do the same with my checking account.
It's just that you can't invest that money, but you're saving on the fees.
Gotcha.
So our fund balance is down 500,000.
Okay, the fund balance at the beginning of the year was 2.5 million. Total general fund balance. Okay, I hope that I'm not confusing you. All right, so if you want to apply, if you want to keep that, your goal is to keep that at about 10% of your expenditures. And if you wanted to do that, I think you could take about 400,000 out of the fund balance. That's a quick and dirty fund balance forecast. Of course, I don't know what your expenditures are this year. It's going to be a percent of your expenditures. That's pretty healthy right now. But yes, the answer to your question is yes, it's going to be down about 500,000. I think you're going to have about 500,000 less to apply in fund balance than you did this year.
We have this year, a million,
900,000.
or just even a bigger percentage.
Okay, wait, so when you said 2.5 million,
Yes,
so, I'm sorry, orient me
Okay.
to the 900,000.
yep, okay, 900,000. What we applied for this year's budget that we're in currently. Okay, now,
Was it 900?
and the year before was a
Okay,
million.
because we went up another 100, didn't we? It was
Yes.
800 at first, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so next year, when you're, that'll be the last piece, when you finish with the budget, you'll want to apply some fund balance. So it was on July 1st, 2.5 million. So now you have to look at your expenditure budget and figure what's 10% of that. And that's the amount that you want to keep in your fund balance, per the fund balance policy. Keep it between 8% and 12%, and usually you aim right in the middle, 10%. So I did some quick and dirty math, and I think you'd have about 400,000 to pull off and apply. But I'll lay it all out with numbers, before before you get there.
Is there, you know, as far as like filling in some of the numbers with Kara, is that possible? Like, is that like March 30th, after March 30th? Or, I mean, could we be closing the budget and going to, you know, referendum without this information?
Do you mean what, without the growth in the grand list? I think she's waiting for the net equalized grand list from OPM. And I think she can do it if we give her a little time and she gets her net equalized grand list from the state.
And are
But
they,
I don't want to speak for her.
okay, but are they giving you any kind of a projection on when that might be?
No, I don't know when
You don't
she
know?
gets that. When she would be getting that.
Thanks.
Any other questions? So we'll move on to discussion. So should probably open the discussions with, I sent a graph to you guys. Got it? So Peter has provided this to me. It basically shows.
Okay, I'll explain.
Oh, okay, go on.
So I made this graph and I just built it off of previous experience. Your experience may differ, so you may have a different graph in mind. But what I did was I put the percentage increase in budget across the bottom and the percentage of votes across this, the y-axis. And it's my feeling, and if you disagree with me, I fully understand, but the lower you keep the budget increase, the more likely you are to get it passed. That's the general idea of that graph. And the other reason I drew the line in and it's a curve is because I use 25% as a random number, but 25% of the people in this town are gonna vote no regardless of what you do. And 25% are gonna vote yes regardless of what you do. So the line on where people vote is in the middle. The idea is, where do you think that line crosses the 50% mark? I put it at 3. It could be as high as 4, 5, I don't know, and below that, I don't think we can keep up with inflation. So that's why I put it at 3. And if we could put it below 3, but that means cutting back on town services and you know, taking care of roads, salt, trees, all that other kind of stuff we want to do. But that's my guess is where I think it needs to be below 5. I don't think that we're gonna get, if we have a budget increase of 5% or more, I don't think it'll pass. And so the graph is just a visual representation of how you figure out where you think it crosses that line. And we want to make sure that it stays above 50%. That's how I looked at it. And did you want to add anything, Bruce? Because it was a worksheet for me to see where, you know, a visual. I work visually better than verbally, so if you have any questions, I can try to answer them.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling from what happened last year.
Well, that's why I based by 5 on this, and last year we were slightly over 5 the first time, I believe. It didn't make it, so
What was the final last year?
It was just under 5%,
just under 5.
like 4.8.
That was the one that got voted on.
Yeah,
Don, do you have the
Made it.
exact number on that?
What was the budget? What was the percent increase?
On the second referendum, what was the increase and what was it on the first budget?
I didn't bring my binder with me,
Okay,
but I do have it, but not right with me.
If I remember rightly, it was over 5 and then under 5. That's. I don't have a binder, and I have a very faulty memory, so that's what I'm going on.
Well, we also have the retail to contend with, what's the mill rate gonna look like because
Right.
of that and everything, because that,
Well, I know I just talked to a selectman from Ashford. And because they didn't have a reval and their grand list went down 1%. They're keeping their increase to 1% this year. I'm hoping to get that passed.
that's Ashford.
Ashford, yeah.
And we have a different picture on there.
They have a different picture, yeah.
They have new business, don't they?
I don't know, it looks like they're tearing down one of the old buildings, so they may be building something new there and they're getting a new weed
In
store.
the last couple of years, I mean, since. We don't have much new business generated by the second truck stop. Really? Is that what we're projecting as far as? The impact on the grand list?
I
Commercial.
thought that they were up and running last year, so that it'd be. The
It'd be
same this
flat.
year, it'd be flat.
Yeah, they'd already been like well over a year at that point.
Does it go up like everything else does?
We don't have much going on, like we have.
It goes down because now they've got depreciation.
Going in.
Yeah.
Up there, but. There's nothing major going on.
Not for us.
Yes, it's not the answer to everything.
I mean, based on that and the increase of the taxes because of the revals and everything. Gotta head like as far down as we possibly can, because if we go up too high, people are gonna vote it down because of the tax increases that they're already suffering.
I think there may also be some economic volatility to put in.
Mildly.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe a little.
And I think that may cause some nervousness in the market, as they say online.
On the other hand, that concern, that definitely puts pressure of the unknown on our budgets
Yes,
for these reasons. One is wholesale increase in prices when you're talking about, aluminum and steel and power from Canada and all of the above. Lumber from Canada, all of that is consumer driven and therefore affects our pricing. Meanwhile, at the same time, cutting back on programs that sustain people in need. That doesn't have anywhere to roll. If you're really going to up in Medicaid and USAID and things like that, you're gonna come down to the state level with a lot of that weight. That puts pressure on the state budgets, and we're all state taxpayers as well, as we all know. But that also trickles down to the town, so. That's like all of that stuff is volatile right now. But the pressure is for those prices to be going up. Food prices for sure. If we're given tariffs in Mexico, so. So we have to be somewhat cognizant of that in the budget, because I don't know that we have any kind of contingency built in. For impact like that, it's happening too fast to really get a handle on. But I think it's dangerous to go so low on the margin that you're really gonna press yourself into problems when you're in operating. I honestly, that's the way I feel about it. I'm not saying, I think it's not a year frankly, for adding positions. I just, that's a real hard one. Because that makes your budget grow faster than anything. Donna, I don't know if we have a placeholder. Do we have a formula? We used to have this when I did budgets at the current. Where you kind of knew that benefits were 40% of payroll. of the person's payroll, kind of, or you had sort of a, I know it can vary, but there was sort of a placeholder amount, because when we talk about positions going up, we capture the salary increase, but we don't capture the benefit increase impact. So as we're going through this, maybe it helps us to know that fuller number of what it costs to have, say, someone go from 15 hours to 20 hours, that puts them into full benefits, right? Full medical anyway, yeah,
20 is part-time, it's being
Yeah.
prorated benefit.
yeah,
But
yeah.
benefit status,
right.
yes, they're eligible.
Is it prorated on the medical though?
Yes,
Oh,
like they would pay a higher percentage of the premium
okay,
for being part-time.
well, that's the kind of stuff that it would help knowing, but I just don't see that. Given that we had the part of your issue, Pete, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be doing a soliloquy here, but you know, part of the pressure on your budget is that there were state mandates for
Mhm.
A, for minimum wage,
Mhm.
and B, for the 4 positions that needed to go up, and I think it was to the tune of about
Salary.
32 grand just for salary alone, 30, something like that. What was it? More like 58
I think so.
Yeah.
in the end,
We were just.
because I know the earlier projections were less than that, but maybe
Oh,
that's-
each salary went to 58, but they
Oh.
were already, they were at 57 plus
Oh,
already.
Right, right, right.
So it was about or no, but not 57 plus. They went up less than $100 a week, so you gotta, so it's 5,000
So
a
about
piece, so it's about
20
20,000.
About 20.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's less than what was
Yeah.
originally projected.
Yeah.
I don't know what impact that has on benefits.
That wouldn't have any impact
No,
on benefits.
no benefit impact. Okay,
But it
so,
would on things like unemployment insurance.
Yeah.
Things like that. So what you're saying is a valid point, that anytime you have any kind of change in employment rates, hiring, adding hours, adding hourly wage increases, salary increases, you automatically have a corresponding change
Yep.
in some kind of pay schedule.
Yes,
And that's not including adding personnel, then you have some kind of change in the benefits package, the insurance. Part PTO, anything like that.
We
I-
shouldn't be adding personnel in these conditions.
Yeah, I think that's
Not
a
in a
really
year like
tough
this.
I think
step.
it's just a hard time to do that. I think
Right.
there's sense behind all of the proposal, most of the proposals I've seen.
Yeah,
For, you know, particularly because of the aforesaid, you know, trickle down impact on things like human services.
Yeah.
You know, for you to have someone that's, you know, that's really a good employee who's connected well and knows his stuff and, you know, very experienced and everything, that's a, you know, that's a really good argument, particularly now. I'm just not seeing that we have that flex. I don't see that we have the flex to do the extra
I
direct.
understand your argument. I also, I need to, if I have a good reason to ask, I have the good reason to ask and I ask.
I'm
And if
glad
you have
you
a
do
good
that.
reason
Yep.
to deny, then you have a good reason to deny and you're the elected official in the role that needs to make that decision.
yeah, it's weighing
So
the,
it's weighing the good and
Yeah,
it's,
the risk of losing the position.
right.
Versus-
and not for nothing, but, you know, everybody knows who's done, you know, who's tried to grow a personnel budget.
Well, yeah,
Ever
you
or
got the other one, the
supervisor.
schools there for the facility
They-
person and yeah. that's
Yeah, that
probably
you don't
under
get-
10 grand.
You
know,
don't get
for
it the
difference.
first year,
Mhm.
usually, you know, so.
Yeah, well,
so-
like the 0.6 driver that
I
Troy
know.
asked for, I killed that last year. I said, I know you want it real bad, but I'm not even gonna put in for it, so that's why I put in for it this year, so maybe year 3. Maybe.
Right. So, you know, there's I don't know, that's just my 2 cents about
Well,
this.
I'm still asking, and but I understand your
Yeah.
reasoning, I've sat on that side of the table and I understand.
Pete, you don't have a lot of, like, there's no years on this or anything. I think this is a chart that
That's
actually a selectman from about 4 selectmens ago, kind of had the beginnings of this.
I made that up whole cloth,
This is.
Oh,
For this
yeah,
year?
Special
and that's
This
why
looks
the
like
numbers at
just-
the top are there. So I have last year's budget and then how much however, then the percentages at the top list above the thing. how many dollars you add for each of those percentages, so 3% is, I don't know how many $100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
But-
is a visualization.
It's a visualization of, and then it's, how much can you add to last year's budget and still be at under 5%?
Mhm.
That's generally where I'm going is that we don't have, right now, the budget as I proposed is above 5% and it probably needs to come down a fair amount and I don't have the used doubts.
I don't think anybody's perfect at reading tea leaves, but I think it's, pretty good, bad, it goes too high, it's getting voted down, so.
Yeah, I mean, I looked up past
Yeah, we-
budget
yeah.
increases and they were anywhere between 0 and 7.7, what's the highest increase ever?
Oh, what, in town?
That's 2000.
What was the highest you'd seen?
7.7?
What year was that?
I don't remember what year it was.
Oh, maybe a chart would be good.
We were all feeling great.
16?
Yeah.
Huh?
We probably-
Went back to
I think
16.
2016.
Not that long. I don't know.
And we took a pretty good jump, 3 years ago? With CIP?
Yeah,
We took
well,
a-
in preparation
in
for,
preparation,
yeah,
yes.
for
But
either,
that was a pretty big jump and so,
and we still have those same conditions
Yeah.
and more.
yeah,
So that was the other piece of this, is I feel like the capital spending in some ways supersedes the operating, and I know that's painful to hear if you're a town employee. And if you're in the here and now with, the operating fiscal year by fiscal year, but we have to address this stuff. We can't just keep saying, I mean, everybody in the last election, municipal elections worked on trying to come to a solution about the schools. And Ken was behind doing something aggressive about it. So that's reflected in the capital budget. And the holding on to that idea of money in the reserve year over year, adding to that is to cushion
mhm.
the early impact of bonding.
I just would like to see operations budget, so everything except for capital. Everything except for the CIP plan. With inflation and with my, mandated spending on salaries. If we cut that budget. When I say cut, I don't mean cut what I've asked for, I mean cut below last year's budget. We're really gonna be hurting. We've got serious
I don't see that
operational
we can
problems
do
like
that.
trees and.
I don't think we're talking, I'm not talking about doing that, going below last year's amount,
Yeah,
like a negative growth budget.
right,
We cut you back pretty good last year, if I remember right.
yes,
we did.
and we,
Should have been number.
last
Yeah.
Friday. We went to the fire department, responded to 17 calls, I believe 10 of them were trees into the wires because of dead trees. And we're cutting trees as fast as we can. We also had a $20,000 cut in our tree budget last year, year over year, and so all we're asking for is to get back to 2 years ago. We got a much more serious problem this year than we did 2 years ago.
Okay,
How do you feel about the request for pavement?
I think that was 2 roads, and I'd like to talk to Troy, and that would be something where. If we could have him here next week or the week after, I think that if he broke that down into 2 parts, which road is which. We may, I think we're gonna have to do without 1 road, that's my read on that, because that's the increase in.
that's the,
Schofield
it's
is one that's getting
275 is
done,
the
right?
increase.
No, those
That's not-
roads aren't even on there because.
That's kind of my argument that I made to you at CIP is that we've got big road projects coming up in capital with some state money behind it, but
Yeah.
also some investment on our end. That's in CIP. I feel like that may supersede some of the local paving besides that.
Right, well, I would like to do one of them, the town paid big money for a report on how many roads to do, and that's to keep up with the plan, and we're already falling behind on the plan if we cut one of them.
Right,
And I-
with what's,
and I
with
think-
what's in there, you couldn't do one of them?
With what's in there right, the addition right
No,
now,
not the, with the 275, but with what's in the,
I don't know, that'd be a question for Troy, I answer that question, but I'd probably be wrong.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing,
Mhm.
but you know, like keeping up with what we need to keep up with.
Right.
But CIP is like, full of that keeping up with
Yes,
kind of stuff that's been put off.
Well, the one thing in CIP is Schofield Road project there.
Mhm.
If we spend $50,000 on that, we're getting $2 million from the state.
well, that one,
It's not- it's
it'd
really
be,
village hill,
it'd be
isn't it?
$750,000, it'd be $50,000 in engineering on that one. Then we get $750,000 from the state for Schofield, and then another 125 for Village Hill. So that's, and that, the engineering's on that's gonna be a lot more expensive, which is why it's in CIP.
Yeah,
That
we've
one, the
already done some
engineering is
investing.
Far
in it,
more
too.
difficult, and, but these are 30-year-old projects that I'd
Well,
like to
and
move
part of-
forward on sometime.
But CIP is under the same pressure, we just don't see it at, when we, our focus is generally in the year only. And so CIP also is the more you push out, the more expensive that stuff becomes, and then it's like out of reach.
Asphalt doesn't get cheaper.
It's not, I mean, I'm just like, hurry up and do it now, you know? It's all those products
Well,
we're
we're looking
talking about
at
with
this
tariffs on them.
49, Station 49 parking lot that went from 35 to 100. That may be damaged to something underground too, we don't know. Because we didn't do it in time.
Yeah, Village Hill and Schofield Road, that's quite a feeling. I mean, it's a major project.
Mm-hmm.
And then we
Amazing
have
job.
Liska addressed not too far out in the CIP plan, which you guys will hear about next week.
Yeah, Liska is gonna be,
Yeah.
Liska's gonna be fine, it's all gonna be fine. Yeah, but it's a dead end road and I'm not being, no, I know, but at the intersection.
Yes, you're cold, aren't you?
There's a culvert there that washed out, and if that washes out, then it's a no end, or it's got two ends, a dead end, and you can't.
Well,
get in or
it's a
out.
dead end road because there's a town right away that goes.
Right, but
Jared Parks, actually.
yeah, but if we lose that,
I know.
that culvert, then we're done, so.
It just didn't seem like,
We're
it's
supposed-
not like it's a main artery, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of a good.
Yeah,
I tend to get taken out of context sometimes.
no,
Especially in these last minutes, by the way, I wasn't really against the cuts. I didn't read these until like 5 minutes ago. I was out of town.
Too late, you're on record.
Yeah, you know, my whole spiel about that.
I wanna read it.
The roads have been a lot worse.
yeah,
It's gone, you know, you got one extreme to the other. We can cut some stuff without going back to the, you know,
the battle.
yeah, when old Hampstead actually had to plow up his own road in front of his farmhouse, regrade it.
You know, in Western North Carolina, that's what they're doing.
That happened.
Yeah.
Well, down south, they don't plow at all.
No, but when the floods came through and washed out all the roads, the farmers just rebuilt the roads, they didn't wait for the state.
Yeah, Vermont did it.
Yeah,
They did that in Bolton a couple of years ago too. They had a bridge wash out. The people rebuilt the roads themselves.
Joe just got pissed off at hell to Seaco and just came home one day.
Well,
piss off the guy with the heavy equipment.
it's because it feels like a little bit of positive news could be in the offing. I mean, I think what we learned at CIP last night about the school, match formulas. And the impact on it. Do you want to, or do you want me to recap it? The
I-
two things that Phil wrote a memo to us about that's in play, as far as this is CIP related. But, that the problem that we've had for a long time in dealing with schools and everything is that the referendum question is turgid and inaccurate in that we can only go to referendum with the number that has no discounting at all in it, no state share at all. When we go to referendum, and so the taxpayer doesn't know what the actual impact on he or she is. So so now we have some movement in the state. They're starting to hear that this way of doing business where a town is required to get the money, the gross money up front. And before they even can apply for state share is being reversed. And they're talking now about you can put in the application, the town of Sherman has done that and gotten its percentage of state share up front, so that there's not guesswork. They could go to referendum with a question that is more, the more accurate number of what the impact will be on that town. So that makes it a lot easier to either do a bond to renovate or build a school, either one. The amount for us, which is significantly higher than it was during the referendum 3 years ago, was it? Is 79.5%. That's at least 15 percentage points, I believe,
Which
above
is up from 60.
the original, yeah. So, which is, a lot higher percent impact than that. So, those are two signs that the state's kind of hearing, particularly towns our size that are having problems with doing big capital projects, within our means. So that's heartening from CIP standards, but obviously, if that's about to break through, that makes addressing the schools easier and sooner, smarter to do it sooner than later.
Yeah, one of the problems though with going with a new school and bonding for that is you have the fire department too. We don't know what the
Yes,
figures.
we've been taking that into account.
It's in it, yeah, I think you'll be interested in the presentation, because we're definitely, everything's in the plan.
Yeah, but I can't picture voters going to referendums and voting for both projects. I think that the fire department
not.
is the more important because of the public safety aspect of it. And that the schools, which have been neglected for a reason, could withstand repairs and not go with a new school.
I don't understand that at all.
Well,
You mean
the
by-
buildings have been pretty much neglected because there have been people on the board who wanted a new school and didn't want to refurbish.
That's not true. That is not true.
Yes, it is.
That's
That's not true at all.
that is so incorrect.
Yeah, it is.
That is not true.
No, that's the picture.
I mean, that may be your opinion of it, but
That's
that
not
is
just my
not what's
opinion,
going
I
on.
apologize, but I gotta go. It's,
I don't blame you.
no, that getting run down, so. It's a long day.
Drive safely.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Are there any other aspects of the budget people would like to discuss? We discussed further percentage in the budget increase. I mean, I would like to see that as close to 4% as possible. I don't think under that is possible. Maybe slightly above it, but once we start getting up to 5% and beyond that, you're gonna have resistance from taxpayers. That's my opinion. There are other opinions on that?
I don't think it's going much higher than, we go above, 5 or above, it's not going, that's my opinion. gonna get voted down just like it did last year, and then we'll be back here.
I don't think it's about a specific number. I guess I'm rejecting that. That's an oversimplification of what's going on. I think it depends on the conditions and what's in the budget. I'm not saying that the selectmen budget's gonna go through at 19.5%, which is being proposed at. I'm not saying anything like that.
Not with my.
But I think, well, I know, well, come on, you know,
That'll be a no, if,
I think,
easy.
everyone at the table realizes that, and I think the selectman realizes that. It's not gonna go through that way. But that doesn't mean that, we don't have some discussing to do about being realistic about what's facing this town and what we need to do to take care of business.
I also want to see a mill rate, when we start zoning in on that, what's the mill rate, what's our projection?
Well, we have,
That means a lot.
based on what Donna's been saying too, there is pressure about having, less than half of what we had last year in applied fund balance.
I also,
If that plays out that way, and I don't know, will we have any better numbers, do you think, on the fund balance? More, I get the impression it's preliminary because it's
Yes.
not. It's not in the reports, we're just kind of scratching down. Is there better numbers
I think
coming
we
in the
should-
process?
put it on the agenda for the next meeting
Okay,
and then once it's an agenda item, talk about it.
and I also think we need to consider doing what we can to safeguard the budgets of the departments that help the more marginalized members of our community, the ones that are feeling the economic pinch the most. We've heard that there's a 13% poverty rate in our town. We've heard the number of people who are using the food bank. So, if there's a way that we can make sure that those people are getting the help that they need, I think those budgets probably need to be looked at a little softer.
Well, I don't think anybody's standing in the way of that.
No,
I agree with you there, I think they're heartless,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, it's-
I'm just, stating, I think those need to be not just
and you're reminding me of something else too in that category. One of the big drivers in this budget, Pete didn't bring it up, but he has before, is that this is the first year that the town is assuming the full cost of a full-time senior center coordinator. So that is a position that was a volunteer position 2 years ago.
ARPA money.
And we paid for it with ARPA money on a sliding scale. I think, what was it? Something like 25%, the town paid the first year, then 50, then the whole nut in this upcoming fiscal year. So that's a huge impact. That's the full-time position. So that was part of why I'm saying, I don't think adding in part-time positions or a position here, a position there is really in the offing this year.
Yeah, let's not bring that position up, or we'll have another, like, full house like last year, remember?
Yeah, but it's all through town government, we're kind of being asked to think about ways of doing things, like, for instance, having, if you don't get the assistant hours you want this year, we may have to depend on some volunteerism, or nurture it, I know that Human Services has been pretty aggressive about fundraising. This director has been. And kudos to her. I mean, they've got an event coming up,
Next week, I think so.
next Saturday. At, a bingo night.
Well, taxpayers do have the options too of paying more money than they're being taxed for. If they really want to see some of these projects going through.
I don't see an infrastructure for doing that.
John Pat put that in place, right?
Well, you can always donate, you can always donate.
Has John been contributing every year to the town budget? I didn't realize that.
Somebody had told me he had put that on the tax bill when he was first selected.
I don't remember that. Could be.
But at any rate, those people who feel that other people should be paying what they want, they can be paying it themselves. Anything else this evening?
No, I think we all know there's a lot of discussions to be had. It'd be interesting.
All right, we will move on then. Present to speak, public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments. Maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain the quorum. Do we have anybody for present to speak? Nick Teller? Yes, Nick?
Nick Tello, Myrtle Road, Willington. I just, the conversation of the bar, it's basically 5% to be under 5% is concerning. Those, to me personally, I'd love to see anything 2% and under. I know that's not going to happen. I think 3% should be the absolute ceiling. People that are advocating for anything higher than 3%, I would love to know if they struggle to put food on their table and understand the struggle that people are going through. I would probably guess that most people advocating for 3% have a meal on their table with no problem. They don't understand what people in this town are suffering. So when you guys move forward in your conversations, just understand the pain that you feel is nothing close to what people are feeling out there. We all know this town has a poverty rate that's high and increasing. Board of Education had a report during one of their meetings that they've seen more kids homeless than they've seen in the past, and now living in other towns. And I guess they get bussed in here. This town is hurting. Last year, the Board of Finance and such, you guys hurt people, and it looks like this might happen again. So while, again, you guys are not having problems living, people are. Consider those people.
All right, thank you, Nick. Do we have anybody else present to speak? No, we do not. Anybody for good and welfare? So do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting for this evening?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second? All right, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Unanimous.
Thanks, everybody.